Bring in show music, please.
Today on Squawk Pod, the government shutdown hits its 7th day. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy joins us as concerns rise that furloughed federal workers won't get back pay after a reopen.
Let's not use this as leverage with hardworking Americans that keep our sky safe for political benefit.
And the critical infrastructure keeping planes safe in the sky.
The software that manages the airspace is kind of like we're running Windows 95 or Windows XP. That's the genre of software we use for air traffic control. We need a new software system.
How good does your boss feel about how things are going in the economy? KPMG CEO Tim Walsh with a survey of 400 corporate leaders.
CEOs are becoming more confident with this dynamic of just constant uncertainty, to be quite honest.
And sentiment in a quickly changing workplace.
When I was hired at KPMG, I was assigned to the copy machine.
Becky Quick is joined today by Robert Frank and Mike Santoli on the massive OpenAI and AMD chips deal we're still talking about.
It's really kind of OpenAI that's driving a lot of that. So it's kind of a one-legged stool.
And a new partnership in prediction models.
It's just a mashup of betting, trading, investing.
You won't miss a headline. I'm CNBC producer Zach Vallese. It's Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Mike Santoli and Robert Frank. Joe and Andrew are off today, but gentlemen, it's really good to have you both here.
Yeah,
Be here.
Thank you for coming in. A day of records, at least for two of the major averages, the S&P and the NASDAQ, once again. We're continuing to watch this climb, and Mike, you've been watching this for some time. Anybody who's been betting against it has been wrong.
Yes, the conditioning has been pretty ingrained at this point, that the mistake has been to fade the AI enthusiasm, to think that we needed a broader pullback, and to feel as if all that good news was priced in. Now, what was interesting yesterday, and we get into it over the course of things, is that it showed you both the power of one of these OpenAI announcements with the AMD, but also the limits, because it did not exactly create a feeding frenzy across all technology. It was very much localized in the food chain, AMD, and directly impacted areas. And then, of course, we're never going to be able to escape these questions about where's the money coming from ultimately, and we can
we will talk a little bit more about this because I do have some questions. I listened to that interview yesterday with Lisa Su. Great interview, hearing all of the things with Brockman from OpenAI too. But I've got serious questions about what this means. You got to give away 9% of your company in order to get to play the game here.
That's
people
basically
say,
the way it's
25% up.
But it's multiples of AMD's current revenue rate. If all of these orders come
if
through,
they come to fruition.
If OpenAI, which of course is cash flow negative for years to come and has to raise the money.
Although Lisa Su said it'd be accretive immediately.
I think it's an important day for the AI industry, right? What we're seeing is there's just a massive demand for more compute. I mean, there's so many applications for AI. There's so many places where we'd like to see it used. And, compute is the foundation of that.
Sure. I mean, if the orders come through. So, I mean, I think it's really fascinating. People have pointed out NVIDIA is doing the opposite trade with OpenAI. It's investing money in OpenAI
and getting a stake in the OpenAI. It's just weird to kind of look through and see how it all works out and how both of them seem to make sense to the markets right now, at least.
Yeah, and just stepping back, if you look, the FT has a good piece sort of adding up all of the OpenAI deals, whether it's CoreWeave, whether it's Oracle, whether it's NVIDIA. And this sort of daisy chain of financing where they're all increasingly reliant on each other. And you couple that with the fact that this entire market is now 80% dependent on these sort of handful of AI stocks. Even within that handful of AI stocks, it's really kind of OpenAI that's driving a lot of that. So it's kind of a one-legged stool at this point.
Well, it's true. I mean, first of all, you have Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet. They're actually deploying all their free cash flow in this direction. So that's real money, and it's going into the system. What is interesting is OpenAI really seems to be trying to say they're going to press their head start and their advantage and say, these are scarce resources. We're going to create a blocking position here. We're going to raise the ante for everybody else. Nobody will be able to get it. Even if we're too ambitious in terms of what the size of the ultimate investment is in the market and the need for it, it's a bit of a land grab, and you sort of portray yourself as being the one who's kind of dictating the terms.
There's no indication that there's going to be any shortage of capital anytime soon, whether it's to increase the valuation of OpenAI or to fund these data centers or anything else. I mean, I cover the wealth space, and it's the only thing they want to invest in right now. And it kind of doesn't matter how or where they're going to invest in it. They just want to be in it. And they know there's going to be a shakeout, but they know that they have to be in it.
It does suggest OpenAI has kind of outgrown the private market, traditional, you got your venture backers. They're doing these partnerships with everybody. Private credit is now directly financing construction of data centers. It's becoming a little more debt financed. But you're right. I mean, the capital just wants to be here.
You need mega caps or countries to finance it at this point. Yeah,
that's kind of the way it's going. Yeah. Well, let's give you the details on all this that we're talking about. We're watching shares of AMD this morning. The chipmaker stock skyrocketed nearly 24% yesterday on a deal with OpenAI. It will see Sam Altman's company deploy huge numbers of AMD's Instinct graphic processing units over multiple years. OpenAI could also eventually take a 10% stake in AMD. The ChatGPT maker said the deal was worth billions of dollars, but it declined to disclose a specific dollar amount. Other chip-related names also getting caught up in the frenzy. Applied Materials gained 3%. Micron was up more than 1.5%. The popular SMH semiconductor ETF was up 2%. A lot of that AMD, of course, and it did hit a new high. NVIDIA fell about 1%. Kind of this idea that this at least was a market share gain on a net basis by AMD.
Yeah. Again, we'll talk more about this as we go throughout the show. It's all the markets are focused on this point. It's all investors, especially the wealthy investors, are focused on, as Robert said. In the meantime, we're still continuing to watch the government. President Trump teasing what appeared to be progress on a path to reopen the federal government before walking back those comments. Yesterday, the president told reporters that healthcare-related negotiations with Democrats were taking place.
We have a negotiation going on right now with the Democrats that could lead to very good things.
What kind of
and I'm talking about good things with regard to health care.
Are you speaking with Democratic leaders? What kind of negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say that. But we are speaking with the Democrats, and some very good things could happen with respect to health care.
Then in a post on Truth Social, Trump said he would work with Democrats only after the government reopened. Democratic leaders in Congress said Trump's claims of talks weren't true. This morning, Axios is reporting that a draft White House memo says furloughed federal workers won't necessarily be eligible for back pay when the government shutdown ends. That's always kind of been what's happened before. Those government workers would get back pay for no matter how long they'd been shut out of work. It's put contractors at a big disadvantage. If you're a contractor, you don't get back pay for being out of work. In the meantime, the FAA is saying that staffing issues are starting to cause delays at several U.S. airports. This is hours after Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the number of air traffic controllers calling in sick has risen slightly since the government shutdown began. Air traffic controllers and TSA agents are not being paid right now, and they are set to miss their first paycheck next Friday.
All right, now to the back and forth in the Senate to try to end the government shutdown. Emily Wilkins joins us now with the latest. Morning, Emily.
Morning, Mike. Well, yeah, President Trump said he was open yesterday to making a deal with Democrats on extending those Affordable Care Act tax credits. That opens up a potential off-ramp here for the government shutdown. But Trump did come back, caveat his comments with a post on Truth Social, saying that he was happy to work with the Democrats on their failed healthcare policies or anything else. But first, they must allow our government to reopen. And that stance from Trump mirrors the stance of a number of Senate Republicans that I spoke with last night. All of them said they're open to talks, but they're on hold right now until the government reopens. And Senator Susan Collins is actually circulating a plan that promises to address those healthcare subsidies once the government is back funded again. Now, Trump is not the only Republican who actually seems interested in an extension. We've certainly heard from a lot of moderate Republicans who are interested, but last night, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted that while she is not a fan of the Affordable Care Act, something needs to be done about those expiring subsidies. She posted that when the tax credits expire this year, my own adult children's insurance premiums for 2026 are going to double, along with all the wonderful families and hardworking people in my district. Nearly 11% of those in Greene's Georgia district are enrolled in the ACA marketplace. That's according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. But for now, the shutdown stalemate is continuing. The Senate voted again and failed again last night to fund the government. But one of the crossovers who had voted yes, Maine Senator Angus King, he's an independent but caucuses with the Democrats, said he's now considering changing his yes to a no if Republicans aren't more forthcoming with discussions over those health care premiums. Another vote on the temporary funding is expected today. And guys, at this point, we expect that one to fail as well. But of course, we'll be keeping a close eye to see if there's any breakthrough in these negotiations. Mike?
Yeah, Emily, so obviously Democrats want some kind of solid assurances that there would be true negotiations on this if the government were to reopen. But isn't there also a tricky thing about the timing where, Democrats feel as if maybe the urgency would pass if the renewal period were to come and people wouldn't necessarily see the likely increase in premiums? It just feels as if everyone is kind of pushing for a particular tactical advantage along that front.
Mike, it's a really good question, because if you look at sort of when these marketplaces open and the notices go out, it is indeed November 1st. What I've heard from a couple sources who I've talked with, they said, look, even if Congress passes a fix after that, a lot of these companies can kind of go back, redo the price. There's a lot of question about exactly how that would work. But of course, I mean, if you've watched these negotiations take place on Capitol Hill before, it is very difficult to get an agreement done, especially one that would need to be bipartisan, as this one would need to be, the one that already has some pushback from a number of conservatives and Republicans on Capitol Hill. So it would take time to get an agreement done. But Democrats, I think at the end of the day, they know that the tax credits expire at the end of the year. There might be impacts that are felt before then, but the end of the year is truly the actual deadline to extend these. And I think that's what lawmakers know they need to work for.
All right, Emily, thank you.
All right, some news for you this morning. New York Stock Exchange owner Intercontinental Exchange is in talks to invest $2 billion in Polymarket. That's according to a Wall Street Journal report that says that the deal could value the crypto-based prediction market somewhere between $8 and $10 billion. The prediction market is one that has been closely followed in the worlds of politics because of what they had been predicting before the election last time around. It's been off limits to U.S. users since 2022 in a deal they cut with the CFTC under the Biden administration. But it's a big company that's funders include Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. Yeah. Donald Trump Jr. is on the advisory board, has been since August, and his 1789 Capital is one of their investors as well. You can see that stock for Intercontinental up by about 3.5% on this news, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it.
I mean, Kalshi is obviously the other prediction market that's been in the news. That Robinhood is now funneling order flow into Kalshi. It's a workaround for sports betting bans in some states because it's prediction, it's not sports, and that's because it's just a mashup of betting, trading, investing.
But Poly can't yet do sports, right? Are they?
Right, I don't believe so. Yeah. But there seem to be fewer rules than there were at one point.
Let's take a look at Tesla shares this morning. They gained more than 5% yesterday. The EV maker expected to unveil a more affordable version of its best-selling Model Y SUV today. That came after Tesla posted a cryptic video clip on X over the weekend, but any new car's driving range and price are still unclear. That stock doing well. Elon Musk still hovering around that $500 billion net worth level.
Look at a longer term, maybe.
It's made a peak in this area 2 prior times, over the last 5 years. I think. But there you go.
Yeah, up 80.
So it's kind of getting up in that direction, and a little bit of a sell-off after the delivery news last week, but hasn't really bumped.
But it's picked up steadily since he left the Trump administration.
Oh, for sure. And then they got the compensation package that knitted him back to the company. I'm sure it's pure coincidence that he teased this big announcement on the day that Sam Altman was having his big party for OpenAI.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, well, my cynicism exceeds yours.
Not that they care about each other as rivals or anything like that.
Right.
Tease will be next.
Coming up, the impact of the government shutdown on air traffic controllers. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
The controllers are stressed out, right? So they work overtime. They work 6 days a week, tough job. They're concerned they may not get a paycheck, right? They'll eventually be paid, but the shutdown is forcing them to work without the guarantee that their paychecks come in a timely manner.
This is Squawk Pod.
Up and Becky, Q.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick along with Mike Santoli and Robert Frank. Joe and Andrew are on assignment today.
NBA superstar LeBron James sparking a flurry of speculation yesterday after posting a 9-second video on X and teasing his, quote, second decision today at noon Eastern. The video mimicked the look of the decision from the TV special from 2010, in which he revealed he was leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers to sign with the Miami Heat. The 40-year-old star hasn't revealed whether the upcoming season will be his last in the NBA. He's the all-time leader in points and minutes played. If he wants to follow the Michael Jordan playbook, you got to retire once and then
come back.
Right.
Play for another team, maybe
Find
come back,
another
maybe
sport.
find another sport too. Right? What would it be? Lacrosse for LeBron?
Isn't he a big
Paddleball.
entrepreneur? Yeah, isn't he
Padel.
one of
Is he
those
pickleball?
Padel entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Is he an
Yes.
investor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you have it. There's his other sport. New Jersey's Newark Airport might already be feeling the impact of the government shutdown as concerns grow over not receiving their paychecks. Air traffic controllers have been calling out from time to time, delaying air travel control. There have been questions about TSA and whether those workers will continue to show up. But joining us right now is Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. He was at Newark Airport yesterday and he spoke to the air traffic controllers there. I guess Newark is just one of so many places around the country where you're starting to feel this. What did you hear at Newark Airport when you were there?
So the controllers are stressed out, right? So they work overtime. They work 6 days a week, tough jobs. They're working on equipment that is sometimes 20, 30, 50 years old. And so they're concerned, they're family people, right? They've got houses, mortgages, car payments. They have to put food on the table. They're concerned they may not get a paycheck, right? They'll eventually be paid, but the shutdown is forcing them to work without the guarantee that their paychecks come in a timely manner. So
Actually,
they're stressed.
There is a question about that now. We were just confirming from the White House that this memo that was leaked earlier about whether or not they'll actually be paid is true. I think there are considerations at the White House to say if you are furloughed, you will not eventually receive back pay like has been processed in the past.
So, but if you're furloughed, you don't come to work, you don't get paid. But
So
those who do come to work that are critical safety positions, I think they will get paid for the services that they provided to the country. So they will get paid. But a lot of them are saying we might have to think about working 6 days a week and then going to drive Uber, so we can get some dollars into our coffers to make sure we can put food on the table.
What kind of pressure can you bring to try and clear things up more quickly? I mean, you're seeing on the front lines the pain that this causes.
So listen, it's my job to tell the controllers to show up for work. That is your job. You're eventually going to be paid. However, I have to advocate for them as well to say, listen, this is the reality of America. They are under pressure. They provide great services to us. And by the way, when your plane's delayed or you're canceled, they're the ones that are making sure that you don't fly when it's not safe. They're the ones that make sure we get to where we're going. And so I'm going to advocate for them. Again, let's open up the government. There's the conversations and the fights that are happening are about issues allegedly that are going to come to fruition at the end of the year. Open up the government, take the months to have a conversation and negotiate, but let's not use this as leverage with hardworking Americans that keep our sky safe for political benefit.
Are issues popping up in terms of staffing shortages at various places that you've seen during the shutdown?
So what we're seeing is I'm not seeing one location consistently controllers not coming into work. What I am seeing is a small blip in one facility, and then that gets resolved and you'll see it pop up somewhere else. So it's not one facility consistently not having controllers come in, but we are seeing issues in the system. And again, you saw yesterday in Burbank, multiple hour delays because we didn't have enough controllers to control that airspace.
Do you think it's a union action? You think this is just frustrated employees or people who are actually sick?
No, so the union was with me yesterday.
Yeah, they've
Newark.
advocated
Listen,
not doing this.
It's the union's job to make the case for their union members. They're great partners. I'm helping make the case for them as well. So no, this is not a union action. Now, could you see in Burbank yesterday that everyone did a sick out? Possibly. I don't have that evidence right now, but it's not led by the national union. They're trying to advocate for the controllers to end the shutdown and get pay coming to the people that provide the services to the skies.
Secretary Duffy, the shutdown is just exacerbating a situation that's been pretty untenable for quite a while, where we just don't have enough air traffic controllers.
So we're over 2,000 short right now. We don't have enough controllers. So a lot of our controllers work overtime. But what I've done is I've supercharged people coming into the business, right? They make good money, 180 at the first end. At the back end, in some areas like New York, you can make up to $400,000 a year with overtime. And so we've increased the throughput of the academy by 20%. We've decreased the time frame in which it takes to get a young person that wants to be a controller actually into the academy. It was taking over 2 years for a young person to apply to the academy, to get into the academy. Well, if you're 23 years old, you're not going to wait around for 2 years to wait for your slot. You're going to go find another job. So we've decreased that time frame, and we're getting the best and the brightest in. So, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time to get.
Are we talking?
We're talking years. And so again, we've in the first phase of this, we're 20% up in controllers. We want to improve that next year. One of the problems with the shutdown, though, is getting them through the academy. They go to towers or TRACONs or centers, and they have to get trained up. And the support staff that's there to train the new controllers to get them certified, we're having issues with the funding to keep those people employed. So it has a ripple effect at a time when we're trying to make up this 2,000 controller deficit. We don't have the staff in place to actually make sure these young people are getting trained into their.
And this is one of those
facilities.
areas that really upset voters when you start to see delays, or you even start to see concerns about safety as a result of this shutdown. When I was looking back at the 2019 shutdown in the first Trump administration, the event that caused that shutdown to end was the delays in air traffic and people's flights. What are you hearing from airlines? Are you starting to hear any complaints on the passenger side? What do you think it would take for that piece of it to be the catalyst that ends the shutdown?
So my phone is the dumping zone for everyone I know to tell me that they're delayed or canceled. Listen, I don't want to see our air travel as a leverage point in this. I do think you need members of Congress to come together and figure out a path forward. And again, sometimes...
What are you hearing from airlines right now? What are they telling you?
They're navigating, right? So we haven't had significant outages. They can manage these issues. They manage weather, they manage staffing delays with air traffic controllers. They know how to do it, right? And they are doing it, and they make up the difference. But also, which is why airlines and air traffic controllers, we've had 63 different organizations that don't sit together to come and say we need to revamp our whole air traffic control system. We need $31 billion. I got $12.5 billion. But we need the rest of the money. So I want Congress to actually come. And by the way, a lot of partisanship in D.C., not partisanship in regard to this issue. They're going to find us the money.
You spoke yesterday about the controllers being distracted by all these pressures that the shutdown is causing. And at least for me, there was a concern there underneath it that perhaps there was a safety issue. Are you worried that maybe you raised a safety issue when you really shouldn't be raising a safety issue, or was that intentional?
So it's my job to talk about what they tell me, right? And there's what you want. If they had a fight with their spouse, they have to leave that when they come into the tower.
Yeah.
But they're being really honest to go, we're concerned our paychecks come a week from today. If those paychecks don't show up, how are we going to navigate that as heads of households? And again, they're human beings, right?
Yeah.
They're just like everybody else. They're working men and women. And so I'm not trying to raise safety flags. I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here. But I am saying, hey, we're seeing issues in the system. Let's resolve it. And again, these are professionals. If there's issues in any of these centers or towers, we slow down traffic, right? Or we'll stop traffic. It's our job first and foremost to make sure you get to where you're going safely. And again, I don't want you delayed. I don't want you canceled, but I want you to get to where you're going to go safely. And that's why you'll see in Burbank, we had a major slowdown because we couldn't do it safely. And that has to be always the key, is making sure people are safely traveling through the air.
Sean, we've talked about this before, but why did it get to this position where we were 2,000 air traffic controllers short? That just seems like something somebody should have noticed along the way, something should have been done earlier.
So we've been short for over a decade. Yeah. COVID had an impact. I don't think there was a quick enough response to getting young people into the academy. Listen, these are hard issues. Again, whether it's air traffic controllers or dealing with modernizing our airspace, they're hard issues that I think a lot of people said, I'm willing to pass it off to the next secretary. And we're not going to pass it off. We're going to do our jobs and be honest with the American people and make sure we fix the problems that exist. I'm not gonna pass it off. It's my job to actually lean in and deal with tough problems.
You said you were confident you'd get the money that's necessary, so the extra 18, 19 billion you think is coming at what point in the process is that?
So I'm hopeful at the end of this year or the start of next year. So I got the 12.5 billion. We're using copper, not fiber. We have to redo our whole network. We need new radar. But what's key is the software that manages the airspace. It's kind of like we're running Windows 95 or Windows XP. That's the genre of software we use for air traffic control. We need a new software system. That has to be developed, that has to be debugged, and then that has to be deployed. So that's going to take us time. And the sooner I get the money, the faster we can go. So in the interim, there's new technology that we can lay over the old software and get improvements to the airspace. But more people fly right now, which is great. We have these eVTOLs, the Ubers in the air that are going to come online, that are going to complicate the airspace. We have drones and drone deliveries that are coming online. So the airspace isn't getting less complicated or less used. It's going to become more complicated. So I'm going to need, again, more controllers, and I need better equipment for controllers to control the airspace.
Everything you just said sounds like it's a pretty bipartisan approach to how things should be fixed. It seems like a common sense a proposal on all of these fronts. Last week, the Trump administration said that it was going to withhold funding for transportation projects in New York City and other areas, other blue cities, because of concerns about how the contracts are being awarded. Is that a partisan fight that slows down much needed transportation spending?
So in New York here, you have 2nd Avenue subway, you have the Gateway Project, massive tunnel. These are the largest projects in the Western Hemisphere. They're massive. And we have constitutional rules on disadvantaged businesses and how you give that money out. You can't base it on race and sex. You have to base it on the size of a business. Are they truly disadvantaged? And in New York, they'll use race and sex more so than they will the size of the business. And so they've known this for months. I've told everybody that I want them to follow the law. So this is not a surprise. And as we said, we're going to review these projects. That happens through a civil rights division at DOT. Well, they've all been furloughed. So, but to be clear, in the president's budget, he funded those 2 projects. I know New York may not give him the respect he deserves, but he loves New York. So not only were these 2 projects in his budget, we're working on Penn Station right now. I mean, a massive revamp to rebuild Penn Station, not just the tracks, but the facilities as well. Again, President Trump's leading that because he cares about the city.
How long do you think these reviews would take if the government were reopened and if the staff was back in place?
I would say 10 days to 2 weeks we could review the contracts, so they can happen pretty quickly.
So they could be back up and running?
We're not trying to stop the projects in New York or the projects in Chicago, but it is my job to make sure that we're following the law when we give federal taxpayer money to communities. You can't use that for race and sex-based purposes. We truly do it on the size of a business. And by the way, it's a good thing. We want to make sure that small businesses have a shot at competing for these big projects. It's a good policy, but you can't do it based on race and sex. We stopped that a long time ago using racial and sexual preferences.
Secretary Duffy, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Next on Squawk Pod, confidence in the corner office. The results of a survey of 400 CEOs of large companies. The CEO of consulting leader KPMG joins us.
But as it relates to tariffs, CEOs are managing that supply chain, moving immediately to cost takeout to the extent they can.
You're listening to Squawk Pod today with Becky Quick, Michael Santoli, and Robert Frank. Here's Becky.
All right, welcome back, everybody. A new survey from KPMG shows America's top executives are focused on making their supply chains stronger. 89% of CEOs say tariffs will significantly impact their business over the next 3 years, and 86% plan to raise prices to offset those costs. Joining us right now to break down the survey is KPMG U.S. Chair and CEO Tim Walsh. And Tim, thanks for coming in today to be with us in studio. It's good to see you.
Great to be here, Becky.
I can't say this surprises me that supply chain is still the top issue. Maybe what's surprising is the number of them that say they're going to continue to raise prices, because the market seems to have written off inflation at this point, thinking it's not a really big deal. Your survey says otherwise.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Becky. The survey results really mirror the conversations I'm having with CEOs right now, and It certainly is around tariffs and the results to the supply chain and how to maneuver through that. But there are a number of really challenging issues in the business dynamic right now. Also, investments in AI and the return on investment and the pressure that CEOs have around that, and also cyber risk. But as it relates to tariffs, CEOs are managing that supply chain, dealing with suppliers. They're also moving immediately to cost takeout to the extent they can. And then finally, they are moving to pricing, of course, and what can the consumer absorb?
I think that's the key, that they've been trying to do everything else first, and raising prices is their last lever that they're going to pull. If you had to take a stab at whether inflation is going to exceed like 2.5–3% based on what you're hearing from these CEOs, what's your answer?
Oh my goodness, that would be a really difficult hypothetical, and
but you guys are good at this.
We have a lot of economists focused on it. What I will say is that it is extremely common for CEOs to be focused right now on pricing, and CEOs are optimistic, but also watching the economy, which has been incredibly resilient, also based on the pressures that are around it at the moment.
Yeah, you talk about those pressures. I was interested in just the high level of confidence that was shown by this. I guess 86% said they're confident in the growth prospects of the country, 84% in their own companies, and that's reflected in the M&A, where I guess more than half plan to do some kind of M&A in the coming years. What's your perspective on the sort of pipeline, and what types of M&A or themes do you see most common in terms of what they plan to buy or sell? Yeah,
so if you look right now, there's been this uncertainty that's been CEOs have been dealing with. And over time, certainly what I'm seeing is that CEOs are becoming more confident with this dynamic of just constant uncertainty, to be quite honest, and getting on with the plans that they had before some of the disruptions that have hit the market. And so at the moment, we are certainly seeing M&A pick up, and it tends to be at the larger scale of transaction as opposed to the middle market. But it's still early days. I am optimistic, though, in terms of the overall activity that we're seeing in the market.
When you say, the 3/4 of CEOs are talking about AI being a top priority, what are the main 10 elements that they're looking to apply it as? And also, do any of them betray a concern about being disrupted by it?
I think yes to all of that. So first and foremost, if you look even a year ago, you had about 20% of our CEOs saying or thinking about AI and investment. You flash forward 1 year, and the vast majority of CEOs are making those investments. It's not if, it's when. And when you look at that, the efficiencies and that play is clear to CEOs. It is the other parts of that AI investment in terms of how do I design my products, and in fact, what do my products now look like with AI embedded in them, and or do I have a new product offering to put into the market? I mean, it's with all of the risks around this investment and this opportunity, there is this huge growth opportunity in the market ahead of us.
What do they think in terms of what it means for their workforce? Are they going to continue to hire? Do they think they'll have smaller workforces a few years down the road as a result of AI?
That is the question. And if you look at the survey results, Becky, it's pointing to a shape of an hourglass, which is sort of a typical shape you would see when tech advances, right? It's that mid-skill that seems to be disrupted. The conversations I'm having, though, around this topic is it's not just the mid, it's every single layer will be disrupted in the labor pool. To the extent which layers will be impacted more really will depend on how quick and how far the technology advances. But it's not just one layer. I would say overall, what we're seeing is a shift in specific workers within the workforce, but an overall optimism as it relates to, because of the growth coming from the investment and the opportunities, and overall
optimism about their bottom line,
not a decline in overall labor.
Okay, just because people like Andy Jassy have said we will hire fewer people down the road as a result of this. That's not the feeling you get from CEOs overall?
When I think it's a mixed result, and I just think about my own business, and I think about, we are a very labor-intense business, and although parts of the labor force will change, I see us hiring into that labor workforce, and in addition, continuing to hire really thousands of graduates.
That's what I was going to ask you. Are you still hiring college graduates? Because college graduates, I think, have a 6% unemployment rate versus the national average of 4.3% or whatever.
New
it is
graduates.
right now. New graduates. Right, new college graduates, because it's harder for companies to say, do I want entry-level people right now? Do I need as many of them? You're hiring just as many?
We are absolutely hiring. I kind of explained it this way to our teams. I said, when I was hired at KPMG, I was assigned to the copy machine. Today, we're not assigning our new associates to the copy machine. They're doing really advanced extraction data analysis, along with all of the other things that they're trained at university to work on.
Do they understand AI better than your older employees? They have a leg up on it?
They do have a leg up on it, for sure. And it is about adoption. We, for example, have put AI tools in the hands of every single one of our employees. And we've done that from the very, very beginning. And the point around that is to ensure that our employees can meet our clients' demands, right, before they can. But adoption is absolutely key. And the good news around that is we are starting to see that adoption curve really, really accelerate in terms of the use of AI in our business.
It's fun. The thing I've struggled with is, is it qualitatively different than technology always gets better and faster and cheaper, and its software is, eating the world was 20 years ago? I mean, is it that much different or just an accelerated version of that? Is AI basically just an extension of what we've been seeing?
The technology today is incredible. I mean, if you think about how a workforce, for example, will be interacting with agents, it is completely different. We're seeing it already today in our business, and CEOs that I'm speaking to most certainly are also seeing this. It is about managing not only humans, but agents within a workflow. Before, where you might have had 10 individuals in a process workflow within a business, you're now perhaps seeing 5 humans and 5 agents. And those agents need oversight and review. The inputs have to be right. We need to understand how the agent actually did its work and performance, and of course the output needs to be reviewed as well. It is transformational.
But that sounds like you will have fewer workers if you're going from 10 people to 5 people doing the work along with 5 agents.
I would tell you, however, if you think about the opportunity around this technology, I mean, you can see it already in terms of the investments that are being made in AI and agents. It's incredible, and in fact, it is in many ways supporting, I would expect, or at least CEOs are saying, the U.S. economy. The opportunity and the growth around this is exceptional.
So do the rest of us get 4-day work weeks?
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would. Tim, thank you for coming in today. We appreciate it.
We're going to start trading around the clock. I'm not sure we're going to have any days off.
Yeah, great. Robert, Mike, I want to thank both of you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
It's great talking to you all. We will see you right back here tomorrow.
And that's the pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts to get the best of our show anytime you want. Tell us what you think of this podcast. Please rate or review Squawk Pod on Apple Podcasts. We'll meet you back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.